Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today at the official launch of Entrepreneurs for Palestine. We're going to give everyone some time to start joining the call. Thank you to all of you who were able to make it today. We're going to have a really nice event with a lot of great, inspiring speakers, interesting discussions. So I'm very, very excited to see that people are now starting to join us. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes just so that all of the guests can connect. And then we're going to start. So I'm Eva. I'm going to start with introducing myself first. I'm a co-founder of Entrepreneurs for Palestine. This is an initiative that we started a couple of months ago, and we have now joined officially Tech for Palestine as our bigger umbrella organization. I'm very excited to be working on this project that aims to mobilize Palestinian and pro-Palestinian entrepreneurs from around the world and to build this global movement in the entrepreneurship business and startup field, as well as in the overall tech field and the VC and investment field as well. So we're trying to kind of create this broader movement in support of the Palestinian cause. And I'm very happy to see that there is so much interest and that so many amazing people are joining us in this movement. Great. So I'm going to quickly share my screen, just a couple of housekeeping items, and then a bit of an introduction to who we are and what we're aiming to do. So as you have seen, most likely on the official announcement, we are going to have some really amazing speakers today. I'm very, very excited. We're going to run this event for a full hour and a half. First, we're going to have a couple of introductions and welcome addresses, as well as a keynote by our special guest, Fadi Gandour. And then we're going to have two exciting panels. I'm going to share a bit more about them as we go. So just one note from me as we are getting started. This is really, a great space for all of you to connect with each other. And I'm going to encourage all of you to use the chat of the event in order to introduce yourselves, share who you are, what you're working on. You can share your LinkedIn profile as well if you want to connect with others. So please, do use this opportunity that we've brought together some really special people who are all committed to the Palestinian cause. Feel free to connect with them and to share more in the chat. So use this. Feel free to also use the Q&A section to submit questions for the panelists. We're not going to have a Q&A session per se as part of the panels, but the moderators may consider some of your questions as they're moderating the discussion. Great. So today's program, as I mentioned, we're going to have a couple of, the introductory words. This is me. We're going to have a welcome address from the founder and CEO of Tech for Palestine, Paul Bigger. Then we're going to have a keynote speech by our very special guest, Fadi Gandour, as I mentioned, who is the executive chairman of WAMDA. Then we're going to have our first panel featuring renowned entrepreneurs who are outspoken for the Palestinian cause. These are Miguel de Casa, Amir Nathu, and Stephanie Nadi. And the moderator will be Eileen Sarah. And then afterwards, in the last half hour, we're going to have an investor panel featuring Reem Kawasmi, Arshan Ahmed, and Asma Bengabsia. This is going to be moderated by Paul. Great. So just a few words about Entrepreneurs for Palestine, who we are, what we're trying to do. Our mission is to build a global community of entrepreneurs who are taking action to support Palestine and to put strategic pressure on Israel. We're trying to create a really big global movement by including entrepreneurs from different countries, different locations, different backgrounds, who are all standing together to support the Palestinian cause. And as I mentioned, we're now officially part of Tech for Palestine, which is really exciting. We're going to learn more about Tech for Palestine in just a few minutes. Some of our activities include business partnerships and networking among our members. So if you join, you're going to be able to network with peers, with other people who are aligned with your values and who are passionate about the same things. And hopefully, this is going to be beneficial for both you and your business. We're organizing a lot of in-person and online events. This includes community gatherings online just for our members. It also includes webinars like this one that we're organizing now. We're going to have a monthly series. The next one is going to be in March. And it's likely going to be about the Palestinian tech ecosystem. We are also organizing in-person meetups, currently preparing 3 meetups, one in London, the other one in the Bay Area, and the third one in New York, all happening in March. So please, if you want to join them, do sign up. We are also supporting members to hire Palestinian talent. We are connected with a bunch of really great organizations that are preparing Palestinians for remote jobs. And we're happy to put any entrepreneur who is looking for talented staff to hire through these organizations. We also offer opportunities for mentorship and for angel investing in Palestinian and pro-Palestinian businesses. For those entrepreneurs who are fundraising, we're now creating a community of values-aligned investors in the venture capital community. And we really are going to try to support them in their fundraising activities too. And finally, we have some extra services like legal help and executive coaching and other types of support by partner organizations who are also part of our community. So some of the ways for all of you to get involved, depending on whether you're an entrepreneur yourself, even if you're not, there are still ways to get involved. The first one, of course, is to sign up. If you consider yourself an entrepreneur, and if you're here, feel free to go on our website, schedule an introductory call, and we're going to be, more than happy to onboard you so that you can become part of our community. We are also going to have several upcoming events, as I mentioned, a webinar series. Please, stay tuned, follow us on social media, Tech for Palestine, and also keep an eye out on our website. This is where we're going to be publishing some of our upcoming events. Sign up as a volunteer. This is an option available for any one of you, no matter whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Tech for Palestine has a great option for anyone to contribute to pro-Palestine projects with their skills. So check out the Tech for Palestine website and look for the volunteer sign-up form. And finally, help to build the movement. Connect with others, use this space, this community that we've gathered today, try to cooperate, follow others, amplify, their work, what they're sharing, because together, we're stronger. So thank you so much for your attention and for being here today. I'm very happy now to pass the mic on to Paul, the CEO of Tech for Palestine, who has offered us to become part of his organization. And it's really an amazing opportunity for us, given how many activities and all the great things that Tech for Palestine is able to achieve. Just a couple of introductory words about Paul. He has previously founded tech startups Darklang and Circle CI, as well as a Y Combinator-backed startup. Now he's the head of Tech for Palestine, a collaboration of tech projects advocating for Palestine, an incubator to start and supporting projects for Palestine with mentorship, tech volunteers, marketing support, and connections to the broad Palestine advocacy community. So Paul, on to you.
Thank you so much, Eva. I'm really excited to see how many people are here for this event. This is really fantastic. When Eva and Aileen approached me about doing Entrepreneurs for Palestine, it had a slightly different name at the time, but as we started talking, it kept lining up with things that we had been talking about doing for such a long time. Tech for Palestine started about a year ago, just a little over a year ago. And when we started, we had this idea that we were a bunch of projects working to support Palestine in some way related to tech, but we didn't really know what we were. And so we had all these ideas. We're gonna enable entrepreneurs to come in for the fight for Palestine. We're gonna have meetups for entrepreneurs. We're gonna help with the startup ecosystem. We're gonna do, just a ton of things. And as happens in any new initiative, we ended up sort of pivoting a little bit to the side, and we ended up that Tech for Palestine is an incubator for pro-Palestine advocacy. But we still had all these ideas, and a lot of the projects that we had in the incubator were things that really made sense for entrepreneurs. Were things that entrepreneurs would want in their company, such as hiring initiatives or B2B boycott initiatives. Were things that the entrepreneurs would want to do themselves, like connecting to mentor Palestinian startups, mentor people doing the work to advocate for Palestine. And this was things that we really wanted them to do. So when entrepreneurs for Palestine came along and said, this is what we're trying to do, I was like, absolutely, like this is something that we have to do. And then as we spoke more and more over the first, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks of what we were doing, we just kept talking about, well, here's an idea that I had, Eva would say, and I would say, oh, I had that exact same idea. Like, here's how we were going to do it. And Eva would be like, here's how we're going to do it. And so it makes, it's a really strong, I hate this word, but synergies between entrepreneurs for Palestine. So I was really, really delighted when Eva joined and when entrepreneurs sort of got merged or acquired or whatever it is we would call it into Tech for Palestine. So we're going to do a lot of really great stuff together. And this is going to be the main way that we focus on the entrepreneur community and that we provide the way for entrepreneurs to leverage all the other advocacy groups that we work with and all the other advocacy groups that we support. So on that note, that is what Tech for Palestine does. We support advocacy groups. So from the start, we were about projects, and projects became, this an idea and volunteers and marketing support. And as we sort of iterated on that, we realized that what we need to do is focus on the ones that are really, really good, the ones that are really committed, and they're the ones that we want to focus our energy on, focus our mentorship resources, our marketing resources. And our volunteer resources to make sure that the folks that are actually doing the work really well and that are going to have the highest potential impact, that those are going to be the ones that get focused on. So we've been doing that since April. The first initiative in the first project in the Tech for Palestine incubator was Boycat, which I know many of you will be using to scan your groceries and um, to help boycotting Israel. And they have become part of they're an official partner with BDS now, which was something we helped broker. They have millions of monthly active users. Which was something that we helped support at the start, and that's really what we want. We want to create lots and lots of initiatives that are like Boycat or have that level of success. The kind of concept behind the projects for Palestine and why we have an incubator for this is that there are tens of thousands of pro-Israel initiatives. You call them Hasbra initiatives or pro-Zionism initiatives, but they operate throughout the United States, throughout the West, throughout the rest of the world. And many of them, you will know of, such as APAC or the ADL. Those are the really, really big ones. But below that, there are, tens of thousands of other initiatives that are doing things like advocating, using the cover of anti-Semitism at your local school to shut down discussion about Palestine, to shut down the kids learning about occupation, for example, or all the ways that we've seen them come down hard on university students who are advocating for an end to occupation and a divestment of their university's endowments from participating in that occupation. And so these tens of thousands of pro-Israel initiatives need an ecosystem to combat them, need an ecosystem to speak out for human rights, to speak out for liberation, to speak out for freedom, to speak out for an end to occupation, an end to war crimes, an end to crimes against humanity, and an end to apartheid. The Starting those and that ecosystem is what we're here for, and where we feel that we can have the impact in the movement. Currently, we're supporting 43 of them. That goes up by about one a week. It went up by two last week, but mostly it's about one a week. And the way it works is you come to our webpage, you apply. There's an incubator page. You can read what the incubator is about and how we support you, but you apply and we'll do an interview. We'll spend about 30 minutes on the phone with you, going through what your strategy is, what kind of impact you have. And we're just looking for something really good. We're not expecting for people to be perfect in every way or in most ways. We're just looking for one thing to like really stand out. Something great about the idea, something great about the potential impact. And if all other parts are weird or off or you don't know how to do them, that's fine. That's what we're here for. We're here supporting folks with that coaching, with those volunteering. Soon, I hope we will have funds to help people off the ground. That hasn't landed yet. But we're here believing that there is that initiative within the pro-Palestine community to have these tens of thousands of organizations, and we see this every
شفتيش
day.
يرسل؟
People every day who have this drive and who are here trying to help Palestine. So our some of them like Entrepreneurs for Palestine might become part of Tech for Palestine directly in the case that it makes sense, and it makes sense in this case. But most are will someday become nonprofits, possibly will become NGOs. Some will become startups like Boycat. The range of things that we're trying to do is really cool, and I'm really proud of like the directions that all of these things are going. We're obviously working on boycotts and helping to scale boycotts. We're working on divestment of the tech industry in particular, and supporting divestment of the venture capital industry. An example of that one is ethics.vc, which is a really exciting one that's currently working with the student movement. There's another one that we just started working with, which is antiwar.io, which similar to ethics VC, but rather than focus on VC, is focused on divestment from weapons manufacturing. We work on protest tech, which is a new and exciting area. Findaprotest.info is probably our most successful protest tech at the moment, but we're launching one called Jaywalk soon that we're all really excited about. We do supporting Palestinians on the ground, so Apricot, Code School in a Box are some really good initiatives around that, helping hire from Palestine and teach people in Palestine to code or leveling up their code in the case of college graduates. There's some that work on education. Meshka.space helps the Olympiad team in Palestine. There's Tojihi Talks, which is helping kids with their Tojihi exams. There's we're doing some work, hasn't quite launched yet, on exposing Israeli Hasbara. So it's all these kind of things. There's just a big range of what we do, and anything that people feel can have impact, wants to have impact. We're pretty good at figuring out, what is your business model? What is your way of getting in front of people? What is the impact that you can have? And we love to talk to people who are sort of non-profit entrepreneurs who are coming in with an idea, with a concept. Sometimes you'll have users, sometimes you'll have a product, sometimes you won't, and sometimes we'll work together on all of that stuff. So really excited to see what y'all are going to come up with, what y'all apply to, and some of you look forward to joining Tech for Palestine as Entrepreneurs for Palestine did, and some of you will help become independent, long running nonprofits that really help the Palestinian ecosystem and fight for Palestinian liberation. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Paul, for this introduction and very energizing also speech about the amazing things that Tech for Palestine is doing in this whole ecosystem that it's building. This is really great. I'm also reading the chat and I'm in awe of all of the amazing people that we have here. We have 250, almost 260 people here in this event, and everyone is really impressive. I'm so happy that we have so many guests here who are really special. Please, feel free to connect with others. We've had a question of whether this chat can be exported. Unfortunately not. So yeah, just take the time now to read through whoever is here and to connect with them. We will be recording this event and it will be published afterwards. You are all going to receive an email with the recording afterwards, so don't worry about that. Also, if someone didn't make it, they're going to receive the recording afterwards. We're also doing a live streaming on social media if anyone is unable to join now. Great. So we're going to move on to our keynote speaker, Fadi Gandour. I'm going to share just a few words about him. Fadi is the executive chairman of WAMDA Group, a platform that invests, nurtures, and builds relationship ecosystems across the Middle East and North Africa. So again, kind of working on that ecosystem systemic level. Fadi was the co-founder of Aramex, one of the leading global logistics companies based in Dubai. He spent the first 30 years of his work life as a CEO of the company, building it to become one of the leading emerging market logistics companies and making it the first company from the Arab world to be listed on the NASDAQ. Passionate about impact and social entrepreneurship, Fadi founded and chairs Ruwat for Development, which is a private sector-led community engagement platform that helps marginalized communities across the MENA region to overcome marginalization. Great. Over to you, Fadi.
Thank you so much, Eva. I am honored and it's such a pleasure to be here with you at the launch of Entrepreneurs for Palestine. And thank you, Paul, for inviting me and for engaging. And I want to salute you all for your courage and for your incredible initiative for Palestine. This is probably the most important time in the modern history of Palestine to act for Palestine, to do for Palestine, to stop what we are witnessing real time in apartheid and ethnic cleansing, and the private sector, people like us, entrepreneurs, people that want to take initiative, people that love Palestine, and people that care about Palestine. This is the time for us to actually act. This is the time for us to be part of this initiative, of these initiatives, to create our own initiatives if we have to, but critical element for us to do things now, because it cannot wait, because the other side is not waiting. And we need to have, and my message, we need to have all sorts of initiatives to support sumud, steadfastness for the people of Palestine to stay in Palestine, because that's how the Palestinian story stays. That's how self-determination happens. And the role of entrepreneurs, people like you, people that care, techies, or anyone in the civil society is going to have a part in the building of Palestine, or the future of Palestine, and making sure that Palestine stays alive. And we are here to witness eventually, because of Sumud, the creation of the Palestinian state and having the Palestinian people decide. So entrepreneurs, I'm calling on you, and I'm supporting these initiatives that are out there, because it is such an essential time for us, for those of us that love Palestine and care for Palestine and want to do things. So I will in many ways be repeating what Eva and Paul have said. We as the private sector have networks, have funding, are mentors, we create jobs, we have access to markets, we have access to regulators. We want to be able to support Palestinian entrepreneurs on the ground. We want to support Palestinian initiatives on the ground, civil society on the ground in Palestine. So for one critical element here is that we want to also stop depending on foreign donors that have political agendas and have been pushing civil society in certain directions inside Palestine. We are independent, we are entrepreneurs, and we care about Palestine. So we are with minimal agendas here, except for creating the ecosystem and creating the environment so that Palestinians can stay in Palestine. There is a massive brain drain, or there is a need for a brain drain. Not that people want to leave, but people want to live at the same time. So the way to counter that is to make sure that we are able, as entrepreneurs, as capable people, as people of success, to tap into our networks and into our capabilities to help our brothers and sisters, the entrepreneurs in Palestine. This is, for me, since October 7th, October 8th, I would say it has been a call to action. I understood from day one what was going to happen. And so I've seen so many initiatives that are going out, that are out there. And no matter how small they are, go be part of it. It makes a difference. It is essential. Our voice, everything that we do is going to make a difference for all the issues that Paul just raised. It is so essential. I keep saying that for us to step up and to create that independent ecosystem that is liberated in many ways from all the political influences. There is talk of all sorts of crazy things that are going out there, from Gaza to the Gaza Riviera, etc., etc., etc. We can rebuild. We are capable of rebuilding. The private sector, the Palestinian and the Arab private sector, have the capability of building, of rebuilding, of participating, of making things happen. So it is not as if we are helpless people scattered around the world. No, we're not helpless people. We're not scattered around the world just watching. We have to step up. We have to take action. And this is the time for us to actually be part of this initiative or any initiative that keeps people on the ground. That is my message. I won't take much longer than that. We between Eva and Paul and the websites out there, you can tell us how you want to participate. We'll be able to help you. There are many initiatives that can be part of a much larger umbrella. It is easy to get in touch. It is easy to make it happen. Please go ahead and be part of this initiative for Palestine. Thank you so much, Eva. Thank you so much, Paul, for inviting me. And thank you, everyone, for coming in and listening and eventually making your voices heard and your action even speaking louder. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Fadi, for being with us and for your leadership. Great. I am excited to now move on to our first panel. Oh, before that, one note for everyone who is posting on the chat, make sure that you are sending your messages to everyone instead of just the panelists and the hosts. So please review if you have shared your LinkedIn with just the panelists. Of course, we want to add you, but if you want to share it with the whole group, make sure that your message is set to send out to everyone. Great. So moving on to our first panel, which is called Entrepreneurs for Palestine. We have several entrepreneurs who are quite outspoken about the Palestinian cause and who have been taking a stance and have been working tirelessly to support the Palestinian cause. The panel today will be moderated by Eileen Sarah, so I'm just going to do a quick introduction of her, and then the panelists are going to do their introductions as well. So Eileen is the co-founder of Entrepreneurs for Palestine. We came up with this idea together because we're both social entrepreneurs and we were very frustrated to see that not enough people in our environment, in our networks, were speaking up. So this is why we created Entrepreneurs for Palestine originally. She herself is the CEO and co-founder of Natakallam, an award-winning social enterprise that works with displaced and conflict-affected communities to hire individuals as online tutors, teachers, and translators. She has a background in journalism and human rights, and she's working to disrupt traditional models of humanitarian aid by leveraging the digital economy to promote sustainable solutions to forced migration. She is a fellow of Cartier Women's Initiative, Summit, Halcyon. She was named 2025 Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the Schwab Foundation, Woman Entrepreneur of the Year, winner of the World Bank Youth Summit, 2024 MIT Solver. So, we have quite a distinguished and famous social entrepreneur here with us, and I'm very, very glad to have her lead this panel and to also work together with her on this.
Thank you, Eva, and thank you for your initiative to create Entrepreneurs for Palestine. It's really an honor to be working with you here and with everyone who's supporting us. So now I am very honored to be introducing briefly who will be on our panel, and they will share about their story and their bio themselves. So first we have Miguel de Icaza, who is CEO of Xebon. Then we have Amir Nathu, who is co-founder and CEO of OutSchool, and Stephanie Nadi Olsen, founder and executive chair of the board. We are Rosie. So as we mentioned to the panelists, we'd first like to hear your story, your journey to where you are today. So we're going to start with Stephanie, please.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here today, everybody. So a little bit about me, I'm a first gen born in America, first gen to go to college on both sides, and followed the typical daughter of an immigrant path, and went to work in tech. I graduated from Georgia Tech here in Atlanta, and then went to work in big tech for actually some of the tech companies that are supporting apartheid and everything that's happening in Palestine, unfortunately. I did that for many years and then decided to build my own business. And about 6 years ago, I left my job in tech, building businesses for other people, and launched my own tech company. It's a platform that matches 40,000 marketing freelancers based in the United States with project-based work with some of the biggest companies in the world. So we were about promoting diversity and inclusion and giving people who wanted or needed to work in a different manner or capacity the opportunity to have the career that they deserve and the life that they were looking for. I sold the majority of my company a couple years ago and thought I was going to take some time to recover from burnout, and went to Palestine first thing in March of 2023. And then, of course, when October 7th happened, I've really poured my energy into defending Palestine, spreading the word about Palestine, and advocating for a better world for all of us.
Thank you, Stephanie. So now we'll go to Miguel.
I am Miguel de Casa. I am Mexican, but I've been living in the United States for about 25 years now. I have started a couple of open source projects and a couple of startups. Well, this is my third startup, I first heard about we always heard news about Palestine, Israel, Lebanon on the news, tiny little snippets of 20 seconds on TV when I was growing up. But it wasn't until the year 2000 or 2001 when I heard there was a debate between Arafat and Perez. And I remember listening to Perez go first. And the only thing that came out of his whole speech is, this guy is like a Mexican politician. He's lying to my face. And it was contrasted by, I don't remember what Arafat said at the time, but the one thing I remember he said was, my only wish, he was asked a question, he says, my only wish is that no Israeli kid ever has to live the life of a Palestinian kid. And that was the beginning of me trying to understand what was going on. And in the United States, it's very impressive because in Mexico, we're kind of disconnected, but in the United States, we're drowning continuously in, it's a completely made up reality, right? We live in a very propagandized world. And it took time, I would say, after 9/11 happened, and I started attending all kinds of anti-war marches and events in Boston, that I started following Noam Chomsky and his writing, and I got to understand what was happening in Palestine. So every time somebody said, you got to educate yourself, I read some more. It's like it just cemented more and more my position on Palestine. Sadly, the reality is that it's taken I have bookshelves full of books on the history of Palestine and Israel, and sadly, I would say it takes too much time to debunk all this stuff, and it takes a lot of work to understand what's happening in this world where we're drowning in this propaganda. So, like I say earlier, when October 7th happened, I immediately knew what was going to happen. It was a disaster in the making. It was a little bit scary to speak at the time, but I was very impressed by Paul Bigger's editorial that he wrote back then, because it felt very lonely as a tech person, because most tech people either, they did the thoughts and prayers or the equivalent of that, or didn't want to touch the subject. And Paul Bigger's article was bold. And I stopped blogging a long time ago. I mostly did social media, but I really like what he wrote there. And it made me feel a little bit less alone. I would say after October 7th, despite, I'm very proud of having read, 30, 40 books on Israel and Palestine. I would say the job that young people did on TikTok was incredible. And I think that they've explained much better, and they've managed to synthesize and explain things in nuggets that, my 40 books, it would take you like a couple of years to read through it. So I really love what's happening there. So that's how I came here. I write software, and I started to learn about Palestine.
Thank you, Miguel. And last but not least, Amir.
Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you today. My name's Amir Nathu. I am half Indian, half Czech. Grew up in England, as you can probably tell from my accent. But I've been in the United States for the past 15 years. Initially came over to start my first company, which was backed by Y Combinator. Sold that company to Square, so spent some time in Square, which is now Block. And then I founded OutSchool in 2015. OutSchool is a marketplace of live online classes for kids. We're very fortunate to have served kids in over 150 countries at this point, growth stage startup. I've been a tech entrepreneur my whole career, but I'm relatively recent arrival in pro-Palestine advocacy. And some of the influences on me were just the kind of slow realization over many years after 9/11 of crazy shit that's happening in the Middle East, and the propaganda that is around it. I was 21 when 9/11 happened, and I was as shocked as everyone else and supported, a military action. And then over years, it became apparent with Abu Ghraib and the aftermath and excuses to continuously go to war, how much bullshit and lies were being told. And then another, key influence on me was, the general racial awakening, which affected many people in the summer of 2020, and starting to see some of the links with various other social justice causes, including racism, anti-Arab racism, and anti-Palestinian propaganda. And then when October 7th happened, similar to Miguel, it was just oh shit, this is going to be used. There's going to be lies. What's going to happen next? And unfortunately, kind of, my fears, I think our fears have come about. And, like Miguel, I was incredibly inspired and impressed by Paul's essay, which finally encapsulated a lot of what I was feeling, and I started speaking out. And so what I've been doing to try and help is just using my position of privilege to just be very, very outspoken on LinkedIn about my perspectives on Palestine, and trying to help through my company with humanitarian assistance. So we offer free classes for Palestinian refugee kids to continue their education once they've reached some semblance of safety, as well as trying to fund and support various political projects, including Tech for Palestine. So it's a real pleasure and privilege to to be part of this panel of great entrepreneurs and speaking to you all today with this group that I think is very values aligned. And I just want to spend my time and energy on folks who are values aligned. And I think Palestine has become one of those issues where it really is a dividing line for me in terms of values. So that's why I'm so happy to be part of this group.
Thank you, Amir. So yes, we are here, and this is Entrepreneurs for Palestine. And I think that if it was entrepreneurs for another country, it'd be much less complicated to talk about and to build something to stand up for the country that we're talking about. So Miguel and Amir, you talked a bit about your decision to speak up for Palestine. You talked about also as non-Arabs, which is very enlightening for us Arabs to hear how you pivoted to, react to what's going on and to realize, the injustice, and we can use many other words to describe what we are seeing. I don't think we were able to tackle that yet with Stephanie, and so I really want to get into the topic and the challenge of speaking up for Palestine as entrepreneurs. Amir, you mentioned your position of privilege. So I'd love to hear a bit more from each of you, what you are referring to, why you spoke up, not so much from a philosophical perspective, but also from a pragmatic perspective as an entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, many of which are operating in the US context, even more so in the US context today, it is a bit tricky, to say the least. So why don't we start with you, Stephanie?
Sure. So in case this isn't clear, I am the only Palestinian American on the panel, and it's been an interesting journey for me. Growing up in the United States, my father is a Nakba survivor. My grandfather was imprisoned by the occupation army when he defended the land that was stolen from him in the Nakba in 48. My grandmother died in a refugee camp before she was 30 years old. So for me, being Palestinian and defending Palestine and honoring Palestine by existing and being public about who I am is a privilege because of what I've accomplished in my career. But it's also a deep responsibility. So I feel this incredible sense of responsibility, given that I have had economic success, given that I did have a strong exit for my tech company, to be that person, right? I also am very aware of my privilege. My name is Stephanie. I'm white presenting. Nobody thinks I'm Muslim. Nobody thinks I'm Palestinian. I get to disclose that information at my leisure, which is another form of privilege, but also allows me to be taken more seriously than somebody with brown skin, than somebody with a Muslim or Arab name. Like my brother and sister have Arab names, and they're treated very differently than I am. So I'm very hyper aware of the privilege that I have and feel this incredible responsibility to speak up and to say the things that other people can't say. Other Arabs, other Muslims could never speak up the way that I can, because as I describe it, I'm a palatable Palestinian. I don't have an accent, all the other things I've just mentioned. So I do feel that that responsibility. I also think, listen, it would be easier to just crawl into a hole and cry all day about the family members I've lost in Gaza. But this is the work. This is the work of being a human. If you aren't like screaming inside and outside and finding ways to speak up in this moment, if not now, then when are you going to do it for any other movement? As Amir shared, like it's all linked together. All the atrocities across the world, the multiple genocides happening in Africa right now, it's all linked. And so I feel like this is the greatest expression of my humanity, even though it's painful to speak up, and even though it's risky, and even though you're going to take a lot of shit for it. And it can be scary at times, but we just have to keep going. And to me, this is how I honor my ancestors who gave everything in the resistance of the beginning of the Palestinian genocide 76 years ago.
Thank you, Stephanie. Miguel, you shared quite a bit about, how you came to support the cause of the Middle East and particularly the Palestinian cause. Could you share a bit more on the risks for entrepreneurs to take this on, and how you decided still to go through with it, and what might be your situation that enables you to do that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a little bit, I want to continue what Stephanie said. On the one hand, I want to say, at some point in history, social justice warrior became a bad word or an insult. So did being woke. And I don't understand how that happened, caring for others or caring for basic justice. We go to movies, and we see the hero die, or we see a sad story and we cry and we weep. We go to the movies and always side with the rebellion, side with the oppressed. And I don't understand how we can do that in that setting, but not do it with the Palestinian cause, or the trans cause, or the women's causes, or all the Black oppression. I mean, so I would say that in many cases, there are certain topics that it is easier to be supportive of, like women's rights or Black rights or Black Lives Matter. But in the United States, the propaganda is so heavy that you have to walk on eggshells. And for many years I did, and I tried to be polite in these discussions. And even after October 7th, there was a period of time where, you had to kind of a role of educating other people and kind of presenting, hey, this is the story that you're missing. But I think that the benefit that, the privilege that I had, like Stephanie does, was my job was not tied to keeping shut. I'm economically independent, so I can speak up while many other people couldn't. And I have to say, when I speak about Palestine or I discuss these things, a lot of people reach out privately to me and say, thank you for saying that. And it's not just Arabs and Palestinians. There's certainly some, I would say, the people that I'm connected with in real life, they're rarely Arabs, they're rarely Palestinians, right? So I don't know that many. You're probably one of the largest groups of Palestinians I've met. So it is just regular citizens that care deeply about justice, that care about injustice, and they reach out, but they know that they cannot speak up, right? Their jobs are on the line, or it would be, if you're a representative for a large company, it puts us in an awkward position. But even, people really high up in very large companies have reached out to me, and I'm not going to name names, but, they drop little hints, right? The little watermelon here, the picture with the daughter on their graduation party with a keffiyeh, right? So the hints are there, but they can't be public about it because they either represent large companies or they can lose their jobs. So I think that I'm in a privileged position that I can speak up. And I have to say, what we were mentioning the other day is it was very difficult on October 8th to come out in support of Palestine because there was a big education thing that had to happen. But I have to say, 18 months into this, it is a lot easier to speak up now. Now, a lot of the times when you hear this propaganda, you immediately go, oh, no, dude, this is not right. So I think that the education that the community has done, that the kids have done, the TikToks, like I said, I think it has completely changed the conversation. And what was very risky in October 8th, I think it's a lot easier to talk about now. Sadly, at the cost of, tens of thousands of lives, but it is a lot easier to talk about what's going on now.
Thank you, Miguel. I also just want to let the audience know that you can drop some of your questions in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them. We have about 10 minutes left for this panel. And so Amir, we'll hear from you on this question as well.
So I feel, similarly that in a position of privilege, it becomes a duty to speak up and take risk commensurate with ability to take risk. For one, so echoing what Stephanie and Miguel said there, But then secondly, independent of consequences, you know, if you believe, as I do, that a genocide is happening, and this is one of the most horrific injustices in human history that's happening, at some point you've also got to say, well, damn the consequences. Like, I can't live with myself to not attempt to do something here. And speaking up is the least of it. And so, yeah, that's how I think about it. And, you know, it was shocking to me. I mean, there's lots of things that are shocking to me about the situation. But, you know, one part that was very eye-opening and shocking to me was, you know, I think I reshared Paul's article on LinkedIn. Didn't comment. I just, or maybe even I just liked it. And I suddenly got some inbound pressure from contacts, from investors. I got some support as well. But it was just shocking the speed and the accusations or the implied threats that came with such a simple thing. And I don't know, I'm a founder, so I'm kind of contrarian. So when I detect behavior like that, that makes me go in the other direction. Makes me want to push and say, hang on, what's going on here? This is ridiculous. What's going on here? And that made me want to push more. And also, frankly, from a strategic perspective, it really seems to wind Israelis up if you kind of oppose their propaganda or actions blatantly. Kind of the louder and less apologetically, the better. Really, really winds them up, and I think causes them to make strategic mistakes. And so my perspective is also you've got to be smart at this. It's not, you know, you want to speak up and you want to take some action, but at the same time, there's no point in sacrificing yourself for something small. You want to preserve your ability to keep on acting and advocating. So I try and toe a line between, you know, taking risk, being aggressive in my action and rhetoric around pro-Palestinian support, but trying to do it in a strategic way that's helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so what I'm hearing here is that all in all, the panelists do feel that they are either financially independent or in a certain position that has enabled them to be a little bit more vocal. And I do want to acknowledge that there might be attendees today. We have about 250 people in the room who are an entrepreneur in school and on a student visa and has a risk of deportation, or trying to build something right now and they just don't have that financial independence. And I appreciate there's a moral duty, but there's also heavy risk for certain individuals. So maybe Stephanie, Miguel, and Amir, you can share a few of your favorite alternate ways, in addition to speaking up and being public, but other ways that you believe can help support the Palestinian cause, Palestinian entrepreneurs, and so forth. So I will keep our order. So Stephanie.
Yeah. This is a really legit question, and I don't ever want anybody to feel shame because they can't disrupt the Microsoft town hall and ask Satya a question about supporting genocide, because they need their job. And so I think that's a really real concern. And we live in a capitalistic society, and we all, like, money is power in this country. And so we need to keep people sustained for the long term of this fight. We don't want people getting deported, for God's sake, for speaking up for Palestine. And I think Amir touched on this. You have to find the thing that you can do. Everybody can do something, and you are going to have to be willing to lose something. Maybe instead of losing your job, you're losing friendships. Maybe instead of losing your income, you're losing a relationship with a neighbor because you're going to have a tough conversation with them, or you're going to speak out at a town hall. Or maybe you're going to lose some of your free time because you're calling your representatives and talking to them about Palestine. There's no shortage of things that you can do, but I'm such a big advocate of kind of maximizing your ability and your strengths. So what's your thing? Are you a letter writer? Are you a marketer who can help somebody and volunteer with many of these nonprofits that have come up that need marketing support? They need social media support. They need ad support. They need graphic design. Whatever your thing is, is. Figure out how you can leverage your talent to help support Palestine. And we're all going to do it in different ways. Miguel, Amir, we can be louder because we don't need a job tomorrow. But other people cannot. But that doesn't mean that what you do doesn't matter. I have a friend of mine, bless her, who interrupted a dinner of a table of white women because somebody said something racist and inappropriate about Palestinians. And she made everybody at that table and potentially at that restaurant uncomfortable and had a very direct conversation about why that behavior was unacceptable and kind of stopped it in its tracks. That matters. Like those interactions matter. And I don't think that we should discount them because we are overwhelmed by Israeli propaganda and it's being perpetuated by our government, who is completely enmeshed with the Israeli government at this point. And so we have to attack this on all fronts, all levels. Everywhere you look, it's surrounding us. It's the air we breathe. So I just encourage everybody to find the thing that you're uniquely suited to do in the fight for Palestinian freedom and do that thing. And as you can take on more risk, but don't beat yourself up about it as long as you're taking action.
Aywa, if I may say, for those who understand Arabic, Miguel.
Well, I mean, Stephanie, I think that articulated very, beautifully. I don't think I can add much more. I would say that I think it's important to, to live to fight another day, right? So yeah, you don't definitely, kill yourself for the cause, but you can definitely talk to your friends. You can keep talking to your acquaintances, comment on the things, correct the record. I like what Rami Mahajan said right on the chat a few minutes ago, which is, the more people that speak up, the easier it gets, right? And I think that, that is definitely the case today. Like I said, a year and a half ago, you had to walk on eggshells. But now that more people are informed, it becomes a lot easier to talk about this. And I agree. I mean, putting some big people on, on the spot is probably not going to do very much. But you can start to change the conversation. There's this whole concept of the Overton window, right? And our job is to push it, further towards truth, really, because that's all we're doing, right? I mean, tech people love to talk about figuring things out for first principles. And I think that one position that you can take from first principles is, hey, here's the Declaration of Human Rights, right? We should all have these rights and why there's two classes of people. Remember I posted a link on October or something, like, a week or so later after the October 7th. And I said, this seems like a good set of principles. And it was a link to the Declaration of Human Rights. And some people got very upset, right? But I think it's, at the core is we can use this first principles thing. And once you come from that point, it's like a lot of things make no sense. It is an aberration. So, speak when you can. And I think that Stephanie just did a beautiful job articulating what you can do.
Yeah, plus one to that, and it struck me also as you guys were speaking that this group of entrepreneurs is a uniquely positioned group to take Stephanie's advice of finding differentiated approaches, finding your own ways of acting, rather than necessarily following a playbook. I mean, it's great that if we can support each other's work, but then there's such a need, as Paul also described at the start, of large numbers of new initiatives and new approaches, and we don't know what's going to work to turn the tide here. And I think, as Paul said, an ecosystem approach is going to work. And to get a little bit philosophical, it seems like the Israeli and genocidal, really fascist approach is to take kind of this top-down point of view, whereas I think we need to take a decentralized point of view of creating a myriad initiatives, myriad approaches and community, and focus on the differences. And so I put a plug in maybe as another type of action beyond speaking out would be to volunteer, found or mentor Tech for Palestine projects, of which I think Paul said that there's already 40 plus, and that they're adding a one a week. So that's another way to kind of support in private as well as talking in various different forums.
Thank you, Amir, Stephanie, and Miguel. I think we are right on time to end within schedule. So it's been a really interesting conversation. And so now I will pass it back to Eva for our second panel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Stephanie, Amir, Miguel, and Eileen, of course, for the moderation. This has been a really great conversation. Thank you so much for being so authentic and for all of the things that you have shared. It has been really, really inspiring to listen to you. I'm also really enjoying this parallel conversation that's happening on the chat. Thanks for everyone, who's joining the conversation there. Now I would like to introduce our second panel, Investors for Palestine. Paul is going to be moderating it. Paul doesn't need any more introductions, so I'm just going to leave it over to him to introduce our panelists and to start the conversation.
Thank you, Eva. And we are going to have about 30 minutes chatting with Reem and Arshan and Esma. And so let's just start with like very quick introductions. If Reem and Arshan and Esma in that order could introduce yourselves and tell us how you came to the Palestinian movement. So Reem, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reem Qawasmi. I'm a venture partner working with Ibtikar Fund. It's a venture capital fund working out of Palestine. For me, I started working with startups early in like 2010. But before, I used to work in assurance services. Then I started working as a freelance consultant with startups in Palestine, supporting them with their business operations. And then I went for my MBA program in the US. And I specialized in entrepreneurship because I liked working with founders and I wanted to support the tech scene more. So I went back in 2017 and I joined the Ibtikar Fund since then. And I've been working with them as a venture partner, helping Palestinian founders grow their companies and expand in the regional and international markets.
Wonderful. Thank you. Arshan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Arshan, the founder of Friday, a community of Muslim professionals, founders and investors. And then we also started a fund called Friday Ventures. How do we get, I guess, as a Muslim, I guess we've always been part of the Palestinian cause. So that's always kind of been close to our heart. And so the quick story was I'm a product manager by training based in the Bay Area, started a company. And I was looking for other Muslim founders to meet with, and I really couldn't find much. So we ended up just starting small meetups that ended up growing into, Friday. We have over 1,000 members now, and yeah, we're here to help in any way we can.
Wonderful. And Esma.
Hi, everyone. Nice to connect with you all, and huge shout out to Tech for Palestine and Entrepreneurs for Palestine for hosting such an amazing program. I'm Esma. I'm the founder of Benghazi Consulting and hold a few roles within the ESG and impact investment space as a board member on an endowment, a portfolio manager on another endowment, and the co-chair of the Investor Solidarity with Palestine Working Group, which has over 500 members, all of whom are investment professionals and investment organizations who regularly participate in our programming to advance Palestinian human rights within the portfolios that we own or manage. And what brings me to the movement, I think similar to what Arshan mentioned, I was like, since I was in the womb, it's in our blood to think about Palestine and stand in solidarity with Palestine and human rights movements globally. And so this is what I live and breathe day to day, and I'm honored to be among you all in company here.
Thanks so much. All right, so to get started with the actual panel, the audience is people who are supporters of Palestine, but may not necessarily be particularly familiar with the Palestine tech ecosystem, in particular the startup ecosystem. So, question for you, Reem, like what is the Palestinian startup ecosystem? Who are the VCs? What founders are there? How big are the funds? Like what's the state of play here?
So to just briefly start to describe the tech scene, I would describe it as young and growing and changing. When we first started working with the Palestinian tech scene, we were getting applications from young entrepreneurs, university grads with little experience, joining acceleration programs and incubators because there were less limited job opportunities, and they were thinking that having a startup would be an alternative for that. However, now and during the last 5 years, we have seen so much change in the Palestinian tech scene. We've seen more mature founders with industry experience coming and starting their startups, solving real problems for the industries that they work for. We've been receiving applications and working with founders and investing in companies founded by founders who were investing their own money and bootstrapping to develop products and come to us at later stages to invest in the growth of their startups. So in the latest mapping probably that happened a couple of years ago, there were like around 200 active startups at different stages in Palestine. At Ibtikar, we received hundreds of applications throughout the life of the fund from Palestinian founders based in Palestine and Palestinian founders from the region. For us as Ibtikar, we are the only venture capital fund that's operating in Palestine. We started in 2015 with our first fund that was 10 million, and we launched our second fund in 2022, and it's now for a total of $25 million. We're expecting to invest in 25 startups by the end of 2026, and so far we invested in 15 startups with the second fund. So it's only one venture capital fund. We have other funds that are private equity funds investing in other types of businesses. However, for funds that are investing in tech startups, we are the only venture capital that's operating in Palestine.
So I'm curious, what other opportunities are there for Palestinian startups that are doing well? Is staying in Palestine their only option from a VC perspective? Do they have to leave for other opportunities, or are there other VCs that will invest into Palestine?
So in general, for Palestinian startups or Palestinian founders, if they're focused on the Palestinian markets, then it would be like a small market, and they might not be even attractive for VC funds. So for us, the companies that come to us and that we invest in, we usually invest in companies that has potential not only in Palestine, but also in the region and internationally. So we invest in these companies in the early stage, in the seed stage, where we usually do the first ticket for them, and we help them expand in their target markets, and for the next round and follow-on rounds, they usually able to fundraise from the markets that they're working in, whether in the GCC or in other places of the world.
So they'll raise from normal
from other
VC
exactly
that are specifically targeted
and
towards
we
Palestine.
co-invested with multiple investors from the region in companies that expanded in the region.
And there's an elephant in the room when we're talking about Palestine, that obviously Israel is next door, and Israel has a massive startup ecosystem with over 7,000 startups, billions of dollars of investment coming in. Does Israel invest in Palestinian startups? Is there anything along those lines, or are there harsh lines between the two countries?
So like it's similar to anything. It's a complete segregation between the Palestinian ecosystem and the Israeli ecosystem, just like everything under the Israeli segregation apartheid system. Palestinian founders don't get any support or funding from the Israeli government or the private institutions or private investors. So the support could be limited only to Palestinians of Israel who are originally Palestinian but are citizens of Israel. They might be able to get such support. However, they still face a lot of discrimination as they fundraise, and a lot of the Israeli VCs, they don't take them really seriously. Furthermore, these founders identify as Palestinians. They are Palestinian founders, and they most of the time don't want to be associated with any Israeli funding. So we consider this as an opportunity for us at Iptikhar Fund. So we always have connections with founders, Palestinian founders who are citizens of Israel, and we encourage them. Sometimes we invested in multiple companies founded by founders who are citizens of Israel, and we encourage them to start operations and hire from Palestinians in the West Bank.
So I know that Israel used to hire a lot of Palestinians, and after October 7th, that they, it seems that there was mass layoffs. They stopped using the consulting firms that they were using. Has this led to an increase in people doing startups in Palestine? Are there a lot of brand new founders trying to make product companies?
So in general, like this was one of the sources of founders. So a lot of founders who had experience from working with other in other markets and were exposed to the different startup ecosystem, not only in Israel, but in other places. They were coming back and starting companies in Palestine and hiring Palestinian talent. And I would talk about like this, how this affected the Palestinian ecosystem. This affected it in the time when they were offering opportunities for Palestinian developers and founders. It affected the Palestinian ecosystem because there's a big disparity between the pay rates, for example, and the salaries in Palestine and Israel. So this was a challenge for Palestinians to compete for talent. However, now it's less, and also we still see founders coming from Palestine who are Palestinian citizens of Israel, and also Palestinians who had experiences in other ecosystems coming and starting companies here.
Gotcha. So, obviously it's pretty tough for founders in Palestine now. What do startups in Palestine need that this community or that folks outside of Palestine can provide, or that they can help in some way?
Yeah, yes, indeed, it's been a very difficult time for all Palestinians, including the Palestinian founders. So I would talk about the founders, our founders mainly. I would say they haven't stopped working with everything that's happening, because mainly the markets that they're working in are outside Palestine, so their work wasn't highly affected. However, it's been heavy, devastating, and really mentally draining for everyone. But still, they were able to continue working and growing their companies. And we actually learned from, and this is because they have adopted like hybrid also ways of working. They work remotely. Their teams are spread all over the West Bank. And this is what we learned from the experience from COVID, for example. So even with movement restrictions that are imposed on cities in the West Bank, our founders are still working, and this applies mainly to the companies and the founders who are working in startups based in Palestine, serving other markets. However, I would say companies that are focusing on the Palestinian market that were more affected, or similar to the Palestinian economy at large, that they were affected by all of the closures and what's happening also in the West Bank. About the community, founders and investors could do much for Palestinian startups. I think Stephanie mentioned a lot in the first panel, talked about how people could support Palestinian founders with whatever they're unique with. I would just, encourage people to get to know more Palestinian founders and explore ways of cooperations and partnerships to understand how they could work with Palestinian founders, have integrations, help them with market access and mentorship. Also, regarding investors, I would encourage them to talk to Palestinian founders and understand the potential beyond the risks that are presented, because like sometimes Palestinian founders are perceived as higher risk than other founders, and support them through direct investment in their companies. And this is what we are mainly doing. We invest in companies at the early stages when founders are starting the companies here, help them expand to the markets that they're targeting, and then introduce them to other networks of investors in the region that we have connections with, and also co-invest with other investors at later stages through follow-on rounds.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you, Reem. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about what the situation is for Palestinian advocacy within the investor ecosystem in the West. And Arshan, you told me before that one of the reasons that you started Friday, I should like tell the story. But one of that you started Friday was seeing the dehumanizing conversations that investors were having. So what kind of effect has that had on your community and the people who you're serving at Friday?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, number one, it makes us feel marginalized, right? So, a lot of us have views, or we're comfortable in certain situations, and that's just not the case. We have to basically put on a facade when we go pitch to investors. A lot of us as founders would go in and we would be smiling and pitching and trying to help out these build this company and tell this pitch about why you should invest. But we knew what this person posted on Twitter, for example, right? Or how horrible the things that they've said. And we just have to smile and pretend like everything's okay, right? And so the first time we put one of our events together of just getting, founders together, it was a breath of fresh air. It made us feel like, hey, it's our own people. We can speak our mind. We're not marginalized anymore. And that was kind of kind of how it started, right? So we started the community just to solve that exact problem, that we're here, this is what we believe, and we're unashamed about what we believe. So the motivation was to start this community, make it a safe space, start giving resources and help for each other. And that's how the fund was actually created, in the very same way, right? So if we believe that money is power, or that we're able to use funds for the good of humanity, and to build amazing businesses within our community, then I mean we need that capital. And that's where we've had an influx of people coming in, talking to us, saying, hey, how can we support, whether it's through money, whether it's resources. And so the idea is that we basically want people to feel comfortable, right, as they are, in any way, shape, or form. Again, as Muslims, or as as Palestinians or Palestinian supporters. I mean, our motivation is to basically empower founders to do what the amazing panelists in the previous group were doing. I mean, that's so amazing and inspiring to see how they were able to do that. Why can't we get more of those? And as someone in the comments mentioned, having more people kind of speak out is really the way to do it, and that's kind of what we're all about.
So are you focusing mainly on sort of Muslim founders, or sort of building tech for Muslim communities?
We're actually more focused on Muslim founders themselves. So it doesn't have to be tech like a Quran app, or an app like about prayer times. Not necessarily, of course not. We're looking for just, again, helping Muslims in the ecosystem. Just like you have found or funds that focus on different marginalized communities. Our thing was the Muslims, we're marginalized, but there's no really way of us being within that minority, and so we created. And one thing I will say is that there's a lot of non-Muslims and supporters that came and said, hey, like I bet on immigrants, for example. I bet on people with chips on their shoulders when they're marginalized, and they're the ones who usually build amazing things. And so we found this outpour of support, not only from other Muslims, but also from, again, anyone who believes that we can make a difference.
Well, one of the topics, sort of the reason that I asked this is one of the topics that keeps coming up when we read about all this genocidal tech, like how Google is taking part in the genocide, or companies like Oracle are discriminating. The people talk about alternate tech ecosystems, and in a sense, what you're doing with building a VC specifically for Muslims is you're building an alternate tech ecosystem, or contributing to it. Do you think that that's going to become a sort of a bifurcation where as things get more polarized within the US, the ecosystem for funding, maybe for products even, for founders, etc. Do you think that that's going to become bifurcated as well?
I think kind of yes or no. So I'll give kind of my hot take at the end of this, but I definitely think it is happening. So there's a lot of us who basically, I mean, we have discussions all the time as founders or again as funds of, hey, should we invest in this company or should we take this investment from this person? And more we're hearing no, 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 right? Or we don't feel comfortable. Even if we do take it, we feel super uncomfortable taking it. So the idea is that if we can build funds like ours, like Friday, that people will choose to come to us because the values are aligned, right? And so we have a preference for bringing in those folks that won't be ostracized for speaking up. That being said, I think I guess who knows how contrarian of a take this is, but the idea of if people are just building things that are are good for humanity, are making money, have good returns, if that balance is shifting on the other side, I think then people will kind of that's where the power will go, right? Or that's where the money will go. So I do believe that if there's a way for us to kind of stand up, if we have numbers, if we start having more funds, we have more founders that are leading the Oracles and Googles of the world and starting companies, and they're more aligned with our mission, then eventually the funds will go where the returns are, right? And I think that naturally that would, even though we may bifurcate it at the beginning, I believe that if we're building it in a way that's sustainable and is getting good returns, then everyone's going to come on this side.
Well, when I was raising for my last company, there had just been the Me Too movement, and so we knew which investors we didn't want to talk to. We didn't want to take money from Andreessen. We didn't even talk to Founders Fund or Thrive Capital, for example. So I totally see what you're saying, and I think this is a good actually pivot over to Esma, because if you follow a lot of these folks on social media, a lot of VCs in particular, a lot of us might come to the conclusion that a lot of VCs are evil. We see them sort of like cheering on the genocide in Gaza. So like, are we, is all the VC like this? Is that sort of true across the entire ecosystem? Or are we seeing particularly bad? Are we seeing the particularly bad examples that are making the most noise?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I think there are a couple of pieces to it, but the short answer is no, they are not representative of the entire industry. That said, they are most definitely the loudest and some of the most powerful voices in the industry. And so as part of the Investor Solidarity with Palestine Working Group, what we're working on is creating an alternative ecosystem within the financial services space, not only in the US, but globally. What we see is that there's a very specific profile of an investment professional that dominates the entire ecosystem. And that is your Wall Street white man who wants to make money at all costs and is extractive and extracts natural resources in the Congo and is trying to extract oil off of the shorelines of Gaza and turn it into a real estate development and so on and so forth. That is very real. And that profile of a person does have a very real presence in the industry. But what we're seeing increasingly through our work is that there is so much more to the financial services space and to investment professionals than that. We simply haven't been as organized, and the products don't exist in this space. And so what we're working on is creating, in many ways, at Tech for Palestine and Entrepreneurs for Palestine, you all are working on creating an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, of founders, of technological solutions to be able to address the occupation and advance liberation for Palestinians. We're trying to do the same thing on the finance side. And so right now, if I wanted to invest in a fund in Palestine, Beam herself said, they're the only fund. Why do we not have dozens upon dozens of more funds there? That's something we need to work on. We need to work on amplifying the narrative around this. I mean, I interact with investors, high net worth individuals, endowments day in, day out who are like, I don't care if I give up financial returns. I don't want my money to be implicated in human rights violations in Palestine. That's a real thing. But when like those as clients actually don't have investment firms to go to who are like, I can work on this for you. Like right now, today, it is actually a virtually non-existent market, especially in the US. And so we're working on addressing these solutions and creating the alternative of what finance looks like. The last thing I'll say is that finance operates as a black box. No one really understands what we do. No one understands derivatives and this and that and all these crazy terms that we use. And that actually shields the financial services space from accountability. And so a lot of you on this line are grassroots organizers, you're divestment organizers at universities, in your cities, around pension funds, unions, whatever it is. And often the way that investment committees will get away and run away from you holding them accountable is because they'll use all these big words and jargon at you. You don't really get what they're saying, and you're like, okay, I guess this is not possible. And so we connect within our working group with activists and organizers all the time, where we're trying to bridge this gap of like, actually, here's what they said, and here's how you can counter them. And so I want to offer that like as our help to you all. If we can be helpful to anyone who's organizing to be able to bridge that gap, to remove that black box and create more accountability, including toward some of these VC managers who are just say like egregious things about Palestine, like I'm going to drop our contact us form link, and we're more than happy to help and do that.
So specifically on that front, like what like are the actual mechanisms of accountability? Like obviously, divestment is one, and founders don't take money from these bad people. Does there actually exist significant mechanisms for accountability beyond sort of the obvious?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And so I'm going to frame my answer to I think a couple of different types of audiences who are dialed in with us today. For investment professionals and asset owners, such as a lot of the founders who spoke today, they've had successful exits, they have their personal portfolios, they're investing their money somewhere, likely with a financial advisor. You can actually ask questions, look at your portfolio and ask like, what funds am I invested in? And I want you to give this feedback. I noticed this person said this or did that or is investing in this. As an asset owner, as a client, you have the most influence. I mean, an extraordinary amount of influence. Sometimes all it takes is one comment to change an entire policy at a firm. So don't underestimate the power and the influence you have. For the activists in the room, and I am, before an investment professional, before in anything, a grassroots organizer. And so you all have my heart. Don't underestimate the power of your public protests and the reputational risk that you can bring. Particularly in finance, people are very, very like, keep my head down, do my work, disclose as little as possible publicly. They're allergic to reputational risk. And so if you can go on websites and look at, for example, this human rights group actually has an endowment and look at what they're invested in, we should call them out on that. Let's write an article. Let's put up a social media post. Let's do this. That, like, do not underestimate how much they will run and try to cover up their tracks and hopefully try to fix what they're doing, particularly when you find these gaps, right? You have a lot of human rights, social justice organizations with very large assets, universities that claim to be liberal, all of this, who are invested in some of the most egregious holdings. And so that reputational risk is a huge measure of accountability that you can pull on. And the last thing I'll share is legal risk. All of these investment firms who are the vehicles that are funding farms and agricultural enterprises in illegal settlements in Palestine, they are directly violating international law. For the financial firms that are investing in the weapon manufacturers and the military AI that's being used to carry out the genocide in Gaza and in Jenin and in the West Bank, they are directly violating international human rights law. They can and should be taken to court in the International Court of Justice. And so these are strategies that we can actually build out. And it's extremely important within our movement. I think for the majority of this conversation today, we focused on the defense. How do I talk about Palestine and protect myself and not get fired and make sure I'm okay? That's an extremely important conversation. But we also need to talk about the offense, not only defending our movement, but taking it a step further and holding people accountable. And so the highest bar for accountability will be taking these investment firms to the International Court of Justice. Even if legal action is not successful, just the noise and the fear that will create and the publicity that will create could be enough to seriously move a significant number of firms to change their direction and how it is they think about these risks. And so just you're using your power as a client, the reputational risk as activists, and then legal risk as strategists who are at nonprofits or lawyers who can start to build some of these campaigns.
Fantastic. So final note kind of on that, because I know you're talking about like investment and the entire sort of like finance ecosystem, but for entrepreneurs, there's a lot of like focus on venture capitalists. And so like, are there specific things that we can do focusing on the most egregious of the venture capitalists that are out there?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of things to focus on venture capital firms in particular. One is identifying who their limited partners are. And that can generally be pretty public information if you have the licenses. So for example, through PitchBook or some of these different softwares, the knowing who their limited partners are, the limited partners have the power. They can shift, the direction of venture capital firms in any way or another. I mean, even legally, they have the power. And so as founders, if you're within that ecosystem and you have relationships with limited partners, LPs, you can develop strategies to significantly shift those firms. Now, if founders are also on the receiving end of that capital. And so I think, Paul, one thing you had mentioned repeatedly is extremely important to lift up, which is you shouldn't take capital from venture capital funds that don't align with your values, because they're going to have significant power over you, including potentially being able to boot you out of your own company if they want it. And so be very careful about who you build your financial reliance on and your economic dependence on, so that that doesn't come back and limit you and your ability to organize. Lastly, again, I will go back to the reputational risk piece. Venture capital funds are much smaller in size, for example, than public market funds, even the largest venture capital funds. If you compare them in size to some of the larger investment firms in other asset classes in finance, they're still on the smaller side. And so having much more targeted pressure on those types of funds can actually yield a lot more result. And so building campaigns around them, literally like taking the information out of the black box, saying this is what their investments are doing, that can yield a lot of impact.
Amazing, amazing. All right. Well, so thank you so much, Reem, Arshan, and Esma. This has been a fantastic panel, and really appreciate all of you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone for this amazing conversation. Thank you, Paul, for moderating. Thanks to Esma, Arshan, and Reem for your interventions as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the chat and for being so engaged. It has been really lovely to have all of you here. Thank you for this shared hour and a half. I'm really hoping that this transforms and makes waves into more connections, more cooperation, and more, collective power that we're building together. Thanks, everyone.